Hi, this is Brian Icenhower, and I'm here with Chip Glennon. Chip and I have had the privilege of working together for the past few years, and I have had the privilege of watching Chip's business steadily grow in very aggressive chunks over the years. So, Chip, thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Brian.
Well, I think let's talk a little bit about you. I think it's exciting to see how your business and your real estate team have grown over the years, and the plans for next year are just exciting too that we've been talking about. So why don't we start in a little background? Let's talk about where your production was a few years ago and how it's progressed.
You bet. So 3 years ago, we closed 145 units, and 2 years ago we went to 201, and then this year we'll close about 250 families served.
Yeah, and that's amazing. With that 250, the plans for next year. That's what I really want to get into. So, what is the Chip Glennon's teams or Chip Glennon Real Estate Experts plan on closing for next year?
Set a goal next year for 500 families served and $93 million in closed volume.
Wow. So 500 units next year. So you've been growing at roughly a rate of about 50 units per year. And then all of a sudden, what has changed in your mindset? I think I know. I just want them to know. To go to all of a sudden a huge 250 unit jump next year. That's got to we got to be doing something quite a bit different to get that result. So why don't you explain that?
Well, it's really been a big shift in mindset, and with your help, I've begun to look at the business quite a bit differently. There's a certain amount of mastery that comes along with each jump in volume, and I think one of the things we've gotten really good at is we've gotten good at lead generation. We're mastering the ISA side of things. But it became quite apparent to me when I looked at the reasons why we were able to grow 50 units a year. What I found was for every talented recruit or agent that we bring in, there's just a certain amount of capacity that is then available to the team in the form of families served and units closed. So
right, the bigger you guys get, the better you can provide to those clients each step of the way.
Yeah, there's no question about that. We're definitely able to handle and convert a lot more business when we have the capacity and the people there to be able to take care of what leads we're able to bring in the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we're going to close 500 units, how many agents will your team need to have to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, based on our minimum production standards, we really need 20 producing agents. There's some, there's definitely support staff involved in making sure we're providing the listing coordination and the field services and the close coordination. But that roughly takes 16 buyer specialists being able to close 300 transactions, which is at our minimum production standard. And then it takes 4 listing specialists able to close 200. So that's 3 and 2 is 500
right.
transactions. We know how many leads.
Now, I know you just freaked out a lot of people because there are a lot of people that are thinking right now, there is no way that I want that type of headache. That's 20 bodies I got to worry about, 20 agents. I don't want that. I want to keep a small team or just, maybe no team at all. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the headaches?
Well, I mean, I think I probably used to have that mindset a little bit myself. The way I feel now is it's extremely rewarding to be able to change teammates' lives. When you're able to take somebody that their passion or their why is to put their kids through college without student debt, and you're able to give them that kind of opportunity, that's very rewarding, and that's kind of what gets me up early and may want to do this is we really are able to change people's lives, and that's what pushes me and drives me to do this. Is I deeply about the people that are on my team, and they give me a lot. They give me a lot to be able to get to their why.
Well, I'll tell you, and I've seen that the culture on your team is strong. It's a very tight knit bond that you guys have between you. But I am going to take a more pragmatic approach here. There are other headaches you don't have as a result of this of your team. And I, for example, do you take listings?
No, I this year I've taken maybe 4 or 5 total.
And
total.
that needs to be 0.
Right. Yeah.
And when was the last time you showed a buyer a home?
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
And so that means we're not working on at night. We're not working weekends. Those are headaches you don't have. You can plan your life, and you can actually devote more of your time to enhancing the members of your team's business and therefore their lives as well too. So you focus tremendously. You meet with those guys regularly. You coach them up. You keep morale up, and you make sure they're succeeding and hitting their personal goals within your team.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's become about for me, is really to make sure they're able to hit their goals and to make sure that we are, really behind them, helping them do what they want to do in their lives and their business within our business.
Right.
And in that process, I've become passionate about helping people do what they want to do in their lives through real estate. What I found was, 500 isn't that unattainable really with the systems and processes and tools we have, if I have the talent recruits to do that. And then, once we get there, I think we'll be setting our sights on quite a bit higher than that.
So for you to go from 250 to 500 personally, do you envision yourself having to work any more hours?
No, I mean, I don't know, not at all.
We just shift what you do, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so we know that you spend time coaching and training up your agents. What do you think the main thing is you need to do differently to go to 500 agents? What daily activity do you have to do the most of?
There's no question it'll be recruiting, Brian. I mean, that's gonna become my number one focus.
Right. Okay. So all of a sudden, this is a shift in mindset, because a lot of people will go through this, as a solo agent moving into a real estate team. You take your focus away from just any business you can get. You start focusing more on listings, which you did for a long time too.
Yes, I did.
You focus on listings because we know that equals every listing should equal a couple buyers and maybe a listing or two more. So we focus that way, and we still service buyers. Don't get me wrong, but the focus is over on listings because we know they'll generate a lot of buyers. But then there's a place to go from there too. And for you to go, you can't get from 250 to 500 agents just focusing on listings. We know, like you said earlier, that if to hit your team's minimum production standards, all we have to do is add a certain amount of agents, and we can move very quick to 500 agents. But the leadership has to be there, and so do the systems and processes. Yep. And the income. You have to have GCI to be able to support it.
There's no question about that. You shift your mindset from coaching and training agents, which is still a big part of what we have to do to get to this goal, but you start coaching and training leaders. So you have a little more leverage, and I can focus then on, recruiting and helping change more people's lives.
Right, and that's great. And I think this, we were talking about it earlier. I look at it like the Monopoly concept, the game of Monopoly, where when you're looking at listings, you're just adding on top of properties, where when you add an agent, you're putting hotels on the properties, because now every agent that you add with the lead sources that are placed, that can add 30 units to your production, just like that. Yeah. If you add 3 agents, that's 90 extra units to your production.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people out there, I know what they're thinking. They're thinking, well, yeah, that would be great if I had enough leads to provide these people, right? Mm-hmm. Leads aren't a problem for you, are they?
No, not at all. And I think there was a point in time where I wasn't sure how to generate enough leads. You always worry about having, what the cost is. But, as an example, when you start tracking your return on investment on leads, it becomes a mathematical equation. You can kind of reverse engineer the business, and then you get this aha moment where, I can generate unlimited number of leads. We've just got to have enough capacity to service that business.
Yeah. At some point, like if you have 20 agents, there aren't many people who has a COI or an SOI, their own client database of people they know, that can support 20 agents. That is, at some point we have to start adding leads that typically cost money from other sources, and you've got a lot of sources. So what do you think on average? Just give me a rubber. Your return on investment when you buy a lead source, what it returns to your team in GCI.
Well, we want a minimum of 4 to 1. I think 8 to 1 is probably more of a minimum that you look at and go, okay, this makes sense.
Right.
But we have several that are in the hundreds.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and use that average of 8 to 1. If we use that average of 8 to 1 for purposes in our example, since it's roughly your average, and let's say you spend $1,000 on any of your number of lead sources, whether it's a Zillow zip code or something on a Realtor.com or whatever it is, and you get an 8 to 1 return, and you spend $1,000 a month, that means over the course of 1 year, 12 months, you are going to spend $12,000 for that lead source. Now, that's on an 8 to 1 return on investment. What does that amount to? I'll let you do the math.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're if you're spending $1,000 a month and it's bringing $8,000 in,
Right.
Take that times 12. That's a lot. That's an awful lot of money.
That's
So
$96,000, Mr. Math.
That's good math. Appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, then you start looking at, well, if that's one Zillow zip code as an example, what if we bought 2 or 3?
Right.
Do we have the capacity in the agents to convert that and give the standard of service that and manage the client experience like we want to? You say, I mean, golly, we can sure enough do 3 zip codes if we have the agent capacity to do it.
There aren't many people that wouldn't spend $12,000 to make $96,000. Especially you're spending as you're making it,
Yeah,
so it's not even a huge.
Sign me up.
Right. So then, like you said, the problem's not leads anymore.
No,
we know how to get
never.
those.
No.
Yeah, it really shouldn't be. At that point, the whole name of the game becomes recruiting, because we can do that all day long. We can do that. I mean, if we're going to spend 12 to get 96, let's do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times.
Right.
The unit count goes up. One of the best ROIs in business right there. I mean, there isn't a business out there that wouldn't like an 8 to 1 return on investment. And then it just becomes a matter of adding those. Now, that doesn't mean you're a solo agent out there and I'm just going to start buying leads. That you do need to have the systems and processes that he has in place to be able to support that.
Yes.
There needs to be training. There needs to be leadership to be able to recruit people. They want to have that because your team is very specialized. They don't have to handle their transactions because they have an administrative support staff that handles them, and they're very specialized and they're very good. And that's a key to this, to be able to make that big jump. So you do have to actually go through the steps to get to where you've gone. But once you get there, the sky becomes the limit.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why we've set this huge goal for next year. And
Right.
and it's about implementation and execution on the recruiting side. And if you can get it done and you can bring the people and get them trained, ramped up, and onboarded efficiently and effectively, the leads are not the problem. The problem is making sure that you have the bench and the talent there to be able to mathematically do what you want to do. And I think I think anybody who's out there running a smaller team that, and I've been there, I've been there for a little while. One day the light bulb just goes off and my gosh, I mean, this is really about capacity and talent, and being able to change people's lives.
I'm going to bring up one more thing before we sign off too. It also it involves you actually alleviate one major headache, one major concern or fear that a lot of small teams face as well too. And that is, what happens if someone leaves your team? Your star buyer's agent gets sick, gets pregnant, gets cancer, goes on vacation, or gets out of real estate.
Right.
That can sink the whole team's production right there. You could be back showing, closing 40 homes on the buyer's side in a year in a heartbeat. That won't happen on your team.
Well, I mean, Brian, it's the same thing. What if you have one listing and you're counting on that one listing to
Right.
get paid next month, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I love every single one of my team members. They're great, close personal friends of mine. We spend lots of time together outside of the business, but there are opportunities that come up in life for folks. There's people that are moving out of state because their spouse got a transfer. There's all kinds of things. They get other opportunities. So we don't want to hold those people back. So you have to come from abundance when it comes to talent on your team. In my view, that's my view. There's, I've told you, Brian's really been a huge factor in the growth of my business. But I do think that you need to have plenty of capacity and talent on your team. Otherwise, it's like having one listing and wondering how you're going to pay your bills next month. Not every listing is going to sell all the time. And so if you have 15 listings, you're probably going to have some closings next month so you can pay your bills.
Right.
And I do think that the kind of one of the mindset shifts that my team and I have come to the realization is we need capacity and talent, because there are people that have illnesses, there's things that happen, and you want to make sure you have that capacity to continue forward and still be able to hit your goals as the team.
Right. And I think even talking about the administrative side side of the team. Wouldn't it be reasonable to say that if your team grew larger, that the administrative staff has the opportunity to have increased income as well?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about people's why, it's not just about the agents. You know, we have operational people that are just phenomenal on our team that work extremely hard. And as this team grows, their incomes will grow, their opportunities for leadership will grow. And I'm extremely excited about those opportunities for those folks as well.
Agreed. Well, Chip, thank you so much for your time here today and sharing the mindset. It's going to be so fun to watch you guys next year because I know you're going to do it. I know you're going to do it. You just need to get your butt out of the chair and get on the recruiting trail, it sounds like.
You're exactly right, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.